Hey everyone, welcome to part 28 of my no armor, no ranged weapons, no deaths, fist only playthrough of Demon Souls. I'm just about to fight the Flamelurker boss, but there's a couple of items on these platforms that I wanted to get beforehand. There's a few items above these platforms that I don't think you can get from here, so I didn't try to get them. I just grabbed the items here that were easily accessible. And I did plan to come back after completing this whole area to get the items here that I was not going to be able to reach or that I was going to miss, that require you to really come down from above, I think. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I come back later on to get them anyway. Well, that was my intention. So from here, I didn't really want to bother fighting these worms. I just wanted to get past them and get to the boss. I've been using claws for the latter part of this run, but this is actually where the Hands of God, the third fist weapon that you can get in the game, are. Unlike the claws, the Hands of God come in a pair, so you can put them on each hand. However, they require faith of 16 to use, and they're quite slow and heavy, so I decided from the outset that I would not use the Hands of God in this run. I didn't want to put any souls into faith, basically. In fact, I wasn't actually going to use any fist weapons at the start, but since boss fights were taking up to 20 minutes, once I found the claws, I decided I would at least use those. And also the claws only took a little bit of investment into dexterity to make him usable. Once again here, I'm trying to lighten my weight because when I did this run, I mistakenly believed that if you reduced your item burden, you would move and dodge faster. But as I've learnt from commenters since then, that's not true. Reducing your item burden does nothing except reduce the amount of items or increase the amount of item carry availability you have. The only way to increase your move and dodge speed is to reduce your equipment burden, which is a separate burden stat, basically. The item burden doesn't mean anything. It just means how many items you can carry. And finally, it's time to fight Flamelurker. I avoided fighting Flamelurker at the start of my run because I didn't know how bare fists would go against him, but I assumed not really well. With the claws on though, I was definitely doing reasonable damage to him, enough to make me happy that I'd waited to fight him until this point. As far as taking damage though, this was also exactly as I'd expected. In my first playthrough, I had the kite shield, and the kite shield negates his attacks if you time blocking well and don't let him hit you too much to allow your stamina for blocking to recover. But this playthrough, I have no armor and no shield, so I fully expected to maybe struggle with getting out of the way of his AoE, especially since fists require you to get up close and personal, and half the time when you do that, your first couple of fist shots usually go through the enemy and they don't even count because of hitbox issues and whatnot, so you end up standing in the pocket for longer and taking more risks just to put a little bit of damage on him. But I was pretty happy actually with the way this fight was going right from the start. I didn't really at any point feel like this could go any way other than a win. That said, I guess my only concern was how it would go once he'd lost a bit of health. When he goes into his final phase where he becomes way more aggressive and his fire does more damage, I wasn't really sure how that would go, although honestly I actually expected it to go better than this because some of his attacks in the final phase are big leaping attacks and you can kind of walk around them and then hit him from behind. So yeah, even though I wasn't sure about it and I was sort of concerned, I also half expected it to be easier than the first half of the fight. In any case, the way this fight was going, I thought even his most aggressive phase shouldn't be a problem. I quickly learnt that he kind of gets a bit stun locked when you hit him in his left butt cheek. So I started trying to get myself to a position where I could always do that, but he did seem to break out of that stun locking after 3 hits. So I just had to be careful after 3 hits not to push my luck, but sometimes I could keep it going, so that's what I tried to do. But realising I could do that was a bit of a game changer because his health started to go down much faster once I realised I could kind of keep him locked by hitting him in the left butt cheek with the claws. Now I wonder if Bare Fists would have been that big of a deal against him. Maybe Bare Fists can stun lock him as well to a degree. I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll test in the future. So you can see his fire is way more pronounced now, it's burning more readily. That's because he's in his most aggressive phase, so he does that leaping forward attack a lot, and it's a really good attack for helping me to get behind him to stun lock him on his butt. So yeah, as I suspected, the final phase of this fight was actually going to be easier than the early phase. I did take a lot of damage in that fight, but it didn't matter. I pretty much expected that, and I could have played safer than I did, but I wanted the fight to end as fast as possible, so taking damage was kind of a part of that. But overall, I had plenty of grass by this stage of the game. I had plenty of grass to waste even, so I had no problem taking damage there, healing myself with grass and continuing on. So the Flamelurker fight ended up being one of the faster fights that I'd had so far. Not the fastest, probably about the 4th or 5th fastest boss in my playthrough. So I thought that worked out well. It was a good decision to leave Flamelurker till later on in the run, for sure.
Then touch the demon.
It didn't really matter what I upgraded here, I thought, but with the Dragon God being next, a little bit of extra damage to help break the pylons or the pillars that are broken down in front of you that block your path was good, I thought, and a little bit of extra health because I was likely going to be hit by Dragon God while I did that, so I thought a little bit extra health will help as well, but I don't really think it mattered too much what I invested my souls in there.
May thy strength.
I can forge weapons for you.
Good to see that I remembered to repair my gear this time.
You come back alive. Ah, hello. You rescued the sorceress from that tower. Actually, the king would...
So that was Bjor, who I rescued from the fat official in the previous part, and it was cool to see that he knew I'd also saved Yuria the Witch as well and made a comment about it, which I thought that was a nice touch. And it was time to go back to Flamelurker's Den, continue on, and beat the Dragon God. Now, I wasn't quite sure how this fight was going to go. In my previous playthrough, the Dragon God was a right pain in the ass because it was difficult to break the fallen pillars with the Crescent Falchion. Ultimately, breaking them with a blunt weapon is the best way to go, such as using a wooden club. I thought, fists being a blunt weapon, that they might be good too. However, my fists were doing very little damage, so I didn't think they would do enough damage to get me through without the Dragon God clobbering me. And I even thought claws might actually work against me because they're not a blunt weapon, but in any case, I really wasn't going to do enough damage. So I decided I'd pretty much try and force my way through this level. I thought I had enough health to take some of Dragon God's attacks. So if I could just survive each attack and heal and move forward, then I thought, yeah, I can probably just force my way through this level. So that was my intention. But I can say it was a bit unnerving because I wasn't 100% sure I could survive the Dragon God's attacks. I didn't know whether or not he might be able to one-hit kill me, or two-hit kill me, or whether his fire would kill me. So I did think there was a possibility that I could get my first death here and end my playthrough. But I was mostly confident, I guess is the way to put it, that that wouldn't happen. So as you can see, one of the hurdles I had to face was there was about a 50% chance that my fists wouldn't connect with these pillars. And I started to worry a little bit that if the pillars fell kind of flat to the ground, that I wouldn't be able to hit them at all, and that I'd be totally stuck on this level doing fist only. But it didn't happen. The pillars broke and I was able to move forward. I made a mistake there and ran to the open, so he saw me and he slammed me, but he only took an inch of health off, so I was actually quite happy that I made that mistake, because it was at that point that I knew if he hit me, I was not going to be insta-killed at all. Then he hit me and took about 60% of my health, and I thought, that's probably getting as close to the most amount of damage that his strikes can do. So I thought, alright, from here, I can pretty much heal anything he dishes out. I didn't think he could do 2 attacks in a row, not in this section at least anyway. So I just ran for it and thought, alright, whatever he hits me with, I'm just going to heal from, and I'll brute force my way through. Almost immediately, I took damage from 2 attacks. Well, kind of. He hit me with his hand, and then I kind of got stuck on his claw, which gave extra damage, but it still wasn't enough to kill me, and I was still easily able to heal fully straight after, so I didn't even turn around and run back. I just thought, I'll keep running and healing as I go, and that worked just fine. So it was a very good idea to leave this whole world till last, because this section would have been quite difficult early on, because you basically would have to no damage it, like not take any hits at all, which can be done. I actually have a video on no damaging this entire thing, but trying to do that with low vitality and low damage from bare fists early on in a run would basically be a nightmare. Wouldn't be worth trying, even if it's possible. It's just much safer and easier to upgrade your vitality, upgrade your damage, and come to this world, do this Dragon God boss later in your run. And I'm glad I did. If you haven't seen this boss fight before, basically when the dragon's eyes are yellow, it's happy, and when its eyes turn red, it means it can see you. You just have to stand behind cover to prevent it seeing you, and when it looks away, that's when you run out and try to break the fallen pillars so that you can move forward. It's as simple as that. After the first section, there's a ballista that I used a minute ago to shoot an arrow into it, and you can see the arrow sticking out of it right now. And after this section, there's a second ballista, and once you shoot that arrow, the dragon will go down. And when it goes down, you just have to put a bit of damage onto its tusk that's on the bottom of its mouth to finish it off. And that's all there is to it. It's really just exercise in stealth and a visual spectacle because the dragon looks cool. I took damage there because I was getting a little frustrated and really wanted to break those pillars, and when my fists were going straight through them and not registering, I thought, well, I'm just going to stay here a little longer, and you can see it happening there as well. Fists and hitboxes don't seem to go together, but it didn't matter. I wasn't really worried. The dragon wasn't doing enough damage to worry me. Although I was a little bit worried about the final section here. In the final section after these pillars, it's a fairly lengthy run up to the next pillars, and given that my fists were going through the pillars already, and given that the final set of pillars are kinda horizontal and low, I was a tad concerned that my fists wouldn't be able to break them fast enough, especially if my fists just went through them randomly. So yeah, I was a little concerned about the final set of pillars here. Fortunately, that went really smoothly. I think only one of my fists didn't connect. So yeah, that went about as good as I could have hoped. I fully expected to catch fire using fists to strike the dragon's tusk, but fortunately you don't. As long as you keep out of its hot breath, you're pretty safe. And with that, all bosses of all worlds except the final area had been beaten.
I can forge weapons. You come back alive and meet your business.
Thou see the touch, soul of the mind, key to life's ether. Soul of the lost, withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended. Art thou finished?
That left 3 bosses, the Penetrator, Old King Allant, and the True King at the end. Of those, I needed to kill the Penetrator to turn World 1 pure white. My intention was that once I had killed the Penetrator, I would then go and do all the remaining pure white world tendency events one after the other, because it was going to be fun to do that and a bit of a challenge. I had already completed some pure white world tendency events, like Gale Vinland for example, mostly by accident. But yeah, I still had quite a few to do, so that was a challenge of mine right from the start, was to try to save as many of them up as I could, to complete as many of them in a row at the end as I could. However, my next destination was going to be Prison of Hope, because I had remembered that there was an area of Prison of Hope that I had missed in previous parts, and in fact in a previous part I'd gone looking for this area. I'd been staring straight at the gate. If you've been watching this series, you'd remember that part. And I just completely forgot to go into that area, despite finally having the key to do it. So here I wanted to complete that, because another part, obviously, of this run was me trying to complete as much of the game as I could. So I didn't want to leave that left undone. If you're not sure of the area I'm talking about, if you haven't been following the series, there's an NPC that you have to rescue from the jail cells in the Prison of Hope area, where I am now. His name is Lord Riddell. Once you go through a lot of hoops to finally get the key you need to rescue him, and you rescue him, he rewards you with the Dull Rat's Ring, and also by opening up the gate to an area that you previously couldn't access no matter how many keys you had. I knew that in my previous parts, and I actually went searching for the area that opens, but I spaced on it when I was staring at it and just left it. So that's why I've had to come back to it now. This gate here I previously opened in another part. The stairs through here lead to another gate that when you come to it any earlier than rescuing Lord Riddell, you can't open because it will say it's locked. But now that Lord Riddell is rescued, you can open this gate right here. I can't get that item because this is a no ranged weapons playthrough, though in future playthroughs I think I'll allow myself ranged weapons for items that are impossible to get any other way. That Mind Flayer was a real arsehole because I didn't have the Thief Ring on. The stealth the Thief Ring gives you makes such a big difference. Oh yeah, as soon as I got the warning that that cell was locked and that I couldn't open it, my heart sank, because everything I knew about, and again there, everything I knew about the Prison of Hope, I had already done. Every key that you could obtain that I could remember or that I knew about, I had obtained. I did not know that there was another key needed for this area, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to complete this area because I have no idea where that key is. I assumed the key was probably in this area, but I feared that it was something that you would get by completing some sort of special quest that I didn't know about. I'd never actually been into this area before. I did free Lord Riddell in my first playthrough, but it was only after I completed that I learnt that this area existed, so I had intended to come here after freeing him in this playthrough, but I had no idea that to open the cells here, there was another key involved, so yeah, either the key was somewhere around here, or I had no idea and probably was not going to be able to open these cells in this playthrough. So it turns out that is actually Lord Riddell. After freeing him, he gets killed, and you find the key to all of these cells on his body. Which obviously I didn't know when I was playing, but I know that now. And when I was playing though, it made me very happy to find that key, because it meant even though the Prison of Hope had been a very difficult area for me to navigate because I wasn't very familiar with it, even though I hadn't completed it in full in my first playthrough, I had actually finally completed it in full and during a challenging playthrough too. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with finding this key and completing this area. Alright, all I had to do now was leave this area. For my next steps, my plan was to go and complete the rest of the tunnel city that I hadn't completed, which included all of the scaffolding area above where Flamelurker was, as well as the area where those 3 rock worms had blocked me from getting to. That was next on my agenda, and also there are a couple of black phantoms to kill down there that I knew were there and I hadn't seen yet, but I knew exactly where they were from my first playthrough. So yeah, my intention was to go and kill them now and then do the tunnel city, the rest of the tunnel city, and then I could finally move on to returning to Boletaria, going through the inner ward towards the King's Palace and defeating the Penetrator. Once again, my plan was, once I killed the Penetrator, Boletaria should turn pure white in tenancy, and that would mean all the worlds were then pure white in tenancy, and I'd be able to complete all remaining pure white tenancy events, one after the other. I know I'd already completed some pure white tendency events in this run, some deliberately, some by accident, but for the most part the majority was still to go, and I was really looking forward to doing them all in one run because I thought it'd be really cool and I thought it'd be really challenging. So yeah, complete the tunnel city was my remaining task, then kill the Penetrator, then do the pure white tendency events, and then fight the final bosses. All assuming, of course, that killing the Penetrator would send Boletaria pure white. Didn't know for sure yet, was pretty confident it would, but at this point in my gameplay, it remained to be determined. For now though, that's it for this part, and in the next part, I'll start with all of that, beginning with completing the final areas of the tunnel city that I skipped before. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 29.